I get it when a friend drops by and says, "I'm thinking about getting a gaming PC but I don't want to waste money on something that ends up gathering dust." I immediately start weighing the same questions I'd ask myself. Do you really need the extra horsepower, or would a more modest setup cover the games you actually play? Are you comfortable tinkering with a custom build, or would you rather plug it in and start gaming tonight? Those are the exact hesitations that make me pause before I hand over a credit card. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. Let's walk through why the HELLOLAND gaming PC desktop might be the sweet spot for some people, and why it could feel like a miss for others. First, let's talk about the category itself. Pre-built gaming PCs sit in a tricky middle ground. On one side you have the DIY crowd that can cherry-pick every component, squeeze out every last frame, and upgrade piece by piece. On the other side are the ultra-cheap off-the-shelf rigs that barely clear the minimum requirements for modern titles. The HELLOLAND model tries to occupy the ready-to-play, decent performance niche. It's assembled in the USA, which means you avoid the headache of sorting out a mismatched parts list, and you get a system that's supposed to run right out of the box with Windows 11 already installed. The heart of this machine is the AMD Ryzen 7 5700X. 8 cores and 16 threads give it plenty of breathing room for anything from a marathon of Apex Legends to a side hustle of streaming on Twitch while editing video clips in the background. In the real world, I've seen that CPU hold steady around 70°C under sustained load when paired with the 240mm AIO water cooler that comes pre-installed. That cooler does more than just look cool with its RGB rings. It actually keeps the temps low enough that you can push the boost clocks for longer periods without throttling. If you're the kind of gamer who likes to leave a match running while you grab a snack, that quiet, consistent cooling is a real plus. Now, the graphics card. The RTX 5060 with 8GB of GDDR4 memory isn't a flagship, but it lands squarely in the sweet spot for 1080p and solid 1440p performance. In practice, titles like Resident Evil Village run at high settings and hover around 70 to 80 frames per second at 1440p, while Fortnite easily breaks 120 frames per second on high. If you're chasing 4K ultra-high detail, you'll notice the frame rate dip sooner than you'd like, but for most gamers who sit a few feet from a 1440p monitor, the card feels more than adequate. The added benefit of RTX-based ray tracing is there, but you'll probably need to dial it back a notch to keep the frame rate buttery. Memory and storage also matter. 16GB of DDR4 3200 RAM is enough for current games and multitasking, but it's the kind of amount you'll start to feel the squeeze a couple of years down the line when newer titles start recommending 32GB for optimal performance. The good news is the system comes with a 1TB PCIe SSD, which means games load in seconds and you have plenty of room for a decent library without having to juggle external drives. I've run Cyberpunk 2077 from this SSD and the initial load was under 20 seconds, which feels like a small but noticeable quality of life when compared to older HDD-based rigs. Aesthetic choices are often overlooked, yet they shape how you feel about your setup. The ARGB PWM fans and the white chassis give the PC a modern vibe that fits nicely into a bedroom or a small home office. The RGB isn't just for show, the fans can be synced to a few common software suites, so if you like a coordinated lighting theme across your peripherals, you're covered without digging into extra controllers. That said, there are a few practical trade-offs you should be aware of. The RTX 5060, while solid for most mainstream titles, isn't future-proof in the way a higher-tier RTX 3070 or RTX 4070 would be. If you plan on jumping into upcoming titles that push ray tracing and DLSS to the max, you might find yourself upgrading the GPU sooner than you'd hoped. The 16GB of RAM, as mentioned, is a similar story good for today, but you may want to add a second stick later, which means opening the case and dealing with cable management that can get a little cramped because of the water cooling loop already occupying space. Speaking of the loop, liquid cooling adds a layer of maintenance you don't get with a simple air cooler. It's reliable as long as you keep an eye on.